Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to talk about Frank Martin. Yes, he had a great fight, a spectacular win over Rivera. However, that's not what this video is about. Really quick, if you like the videos, if you like the content, if you like the channel, I would ask you, please subscribe to the channel right now. Take this opportunity, this moment right now, subscribe to the channel. And while you're doing so, if you could, please hit that thumbs up button. It really does help the channel. Now, back to this video. Although Frank Martin had a great fight against Rivera, it was a good fight. And I feel like the fight lived up to, well, I feel like he lived up to himself. This video is geared a little bit more towards how boxing likes to crown new kings. You know, it's so amazing. You know, a guy has a good showing, and now he's the next best thing since sliced bread. And I'm not saying he's not good. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he's very entertaining, and I think he's extremely skillful. But some of the things that I've read and I've seen and I've heard thus, you know, or post the fight, it's kind of, you know, only boxing can see a performance and say you're the greatest. You're the most awesome fighter we've ever seen. Only boxing can do that. Only boxing would do that. Yeah. So, you know, post the fight, he was asked, who do you want next? As all fighters are asked, and of course you should ask. And Frank Martin says, you know, I want everybody, which is the political answer. I mean, nowadays, give a name. Because when you say you want everybody, you haven't said anybody. And by not saying anybody, closed mouths don't get fed. And nobody's going to say, hey, I want to fight that guy. It's not like he called me out. So that's that. But there are three people in particular that a few questions have been asked about. And basically, you know, his praises have been sung so highly that now he could kind of run through these guys if he wanted to, if he were in the ring with them. So I'm going to run down the three guys and then basically what I would think about that potential matchup. So I guess I will start with the easiest, and the guy who he did mention by name simply because he was there in attendance at the fight, and that was Romero. Now, I don't think Romero is the most skilled guy in the world, far from. I think he reminds me a lot of maybe like a small Deontay Wilder, in a sense that he's very confident, he's very strong, and he has this nonchalant way about going about things where he'll just kind of bum rush you. Now, that being said, how do I think Rolly would fare against Frank Martin? I do not know what Frank Martin's chin is. I don't know. We haven't really seen it tested. To say Rolly doesn't have a chin, I don't really want to say that because he did get hit by probably or arguably the hardest hitter in the division. So I can't say that he doesn't have a chin because he took a hit from a hard puncher. Now, if Rolly got knocked out by, say, Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson, then it'd be like, okay, well, you know, they don't hit that hard and they knocked him out. So Rolly, it'd be a lot easier to say Rolly doesn't have a chin. But Rolly got dropped by Tank, who's by far the heaviest handed person in the division. Period. So it's not an easy thing to say that you shouldn't, or I will not say that Rolly doesn't have a chin because look who he got dropped by. You can't say, oh, a guy got dropped by Deontay Wilder. Yeah, because he has a glass jaw. Are you kidding me? It's Deontay Wilder. Now, if he gets dropped by, I don't know, Otto Weiland, you know what I'm saying? Like, then I suppose it's like, matter of fact, if he gets dropped by Usyk doesn't hit very hard, especially a heavyweight. He's not dropping people. If Usyk were to lay somebody out, especially a heavyweight, and he wasn't doing it at cruiserweight, so imagine at heavyweight. If Usyk were to drop somebody with one punch at heavyweight, you'd be like, yeah, that guy has a glass jaw. But for Tank to drop somebody, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. He could have a very strong jaw and still get dropped and still, you know, night-night. So that being said, I'm going to let Rolly slide on that. So I will say we don't really know how good or bad Rolly's chin is because of who he got dropped by. Now, on the flip hand side, in terms of Frank Martin, we don't know anything about his chin. I don't know about his chin. I don't know what he's I don't know about his chin. I know nothing about the man's chin. So therefore, I don't know if he can handle it. I know Rolly is very big for the weight for the division. I know Rolly on the night of when he fights he's huge. He's a full-on welterweight. like Rolly could easily fight at 154 if he wanted to. He can fight at 154. Am I saying he'd be effective? I don't know about that, but I am saying that he could. I'm just saying physically, Rolly could fight at 154. So skills wise, yeah, I would give it to Martin. Speed wise, yes, I would give it to Martin. Power, I'm gonna not lean. I'm going totally on the side of Rolly Romero. But yeah, skills pay the bills. And one thing Frank Martin really did was impressed me really well with was his ability to counterpunch. And I think with somebody like Rolly Romero, you would need to lean more toward counterpunching. I think it'd be anybody's bread and butter if they were to face Rolly Romero for two reasons. One, because Rolly believes in his power so much, he's not going to back up. And two, he doesn't really know how to back up. So he believes in his power, so he's going forward. So he'd probably be first. So that being said, the counterpunching, regardless of who it is, but especially Frank Martin, it would be a sweet place for him fighting Rolly Romero. Another place that would be pretty good, one thing that I really liked about how Frank Martin was fighting, he was fighting very smart, and he was very selective in his shots. Now, dealing with Rolly, everything is 100% with Rolly. He doesn't know how to pepper somebody and line somebody up and then blast them and to try to knock his head off. He doesn't know how to do that. Everything that Rolly throws is like 110%. He just doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know how to vary the impact of all punches. He doesn't know how to do that. And that's granted because he hasn't been doing this as long as everybody else in the division. But he doesn't know how to do that. Frank Martin knows how to do that. Frank Martin is very selective with his punches. He's the type of guy who doesn't waste. And also Frank Martin has great balance. He was never off balance in his fight with Rivera. He was always ready to throw. He could be first or he could be second. Sometimes he was first and second. Sometimes it was first, second, and third. I mean, he didn't give Rivera any breaks. He didn't give him any time off. He was right there the whole time. He would have to fight in the back foot with Romero. Romero's just really big. But overall, I would see, it's hard to say because I've never seen it hit really crack. So, but I would fare with Frank Martin with Rolly Romero, just based on skills and speed, and also footwork, him being able to fight backing up. Now, it gets a little harder as we continue. Another name that was mentioned, Shakur Stevenson. I don't think, from what we saw with Frank Martin, that is going to hold up with Shakur Stevenson. Because everything that Frank Martin did, which was amazing work, he would have to do that while moving. Those guys are basically in the center ring. They didn't move a whole lot, but he would have to do that while moving. He would have to do that with a guy who's just as selective or even more selective with his punches. And Shakur Stevenson. He would also have to do that with Shakur Stevenson, who has an amazing jab. But on top of that amazing jab, he also knows how to line you up with that jab. And especially, I keep talking about it, but it's true. In his last fight, he did get physically stronger, and he could wrestle people. He could out wrestle people, and I could easily see Shakur Stevenson out wrestling Frank Martin. Yeah, Frank Martin has a lot of muscles, but I could easily see Shakur Stevenson out wrestling Frank Martin. Again, he trains with Andre Ward. He trains with Bud Crawford. He trains with people who know how to grapple in the ring, and they've sparred more than enough times. So trust me. He's around people who would make sure he's more than capable of mixing it up in the clinch. And I think Shakur Stevenson understands spacing better than Frank Martin. So, and he's probably as fast as Frank Martin. I don't necessarily think he's faster, but he's probably as fast. The only thing that would give me a question would be the pace. Because Shakur, in a perfect world, Shakur is going to do all the punching. He's not going to get hit. And it's not going to be it's not going to be an extremely fast pace, but it's not going to be slow either. It's going to be a very moderate pace. While Frank Martin wants to stand right here in a perfect world and we just blast off. And while he's fully trusting in his counter-punching abilities. And the reality is, with Shakur Stevenson, he's not going to be there for you to counter. So there you have it. I would still go with Shakur Stevenson. And lastly, it was mentioned about Tank, him saying he would be open to fighting Tank since that name was presented to him. I think Tank hits really hard. I think Tank is very explosive. I think Tank has very underrated footwork. I think Tank has very underrated boxing IQ. I think Tank also knows how to set traps. Tank is not the guy who's going to throw a ton of punches, but when he throws, it's effective. But when he throws, it's worth it. Tank and Shakur are very accurate in their punches. And you know what? Let me throw Martin in there as well. He's also very accurate in his punches. I think all of these fights would be interesting. I would love to see all these fights. And I mean all back-to-back in sequence. I have no issues with that. But to sit here and just newly crown Frank Martin the overall king of the world just because he had one great performance, all the guys I just mentioned at one point have had one great performance. So what does that mean? Do we have multiple kings now? No, we don't have multiple kings. And until you get into that top five and these guys actually start fighting one another, then I think the kingship will crown itself. So Alexander the Great had when the time where he passed away, he was on his deathbed, and all his guys are around him, and they're like, all right, you don't have a successor. Who are you going to name? Who's going to be the king? Who's going to run this show? You're going out. And he takes his ring off and he says, give it to the strongest. Whoever can take control of the kingdom, that's the king. And that's the same way I feel about boxing. This is not a biased video or anything like that, but whoever's the strongest, listen, and until these guys in the top five start fighting each other, I think it's ludicrous to start saying who's going to be who. I mean, unless there's somebody who's quite obvious. Like, okay, I've never been overly fond of Teofimo Lopez, so I never thought he would be the guy in the end, and he's not. I mean, he just won a fight, and everybody's saying he looked bad. So what does that say for it? But when I look at Frank Martin, I think he's an amazing talent. I think he has a great skill set. I think he couldn't have a better guy around him in terms of work ethic in Earl Spence. But to sit here and just say he's the next big thing and he's the end-all, be-all, I think everybody needs to pump their brakes. I think we need to see a little bit more from Frank Martin because he literally just got on the scene. We literally are now saying his name because we weren't saying his name a year ago. So to discredit everybody whose name we've been saying just because he had one great performance or his biggest great performance, I think it's a little ludicrous. I think it's a little premature. I think he's an amazing talent. I really do. I really want to see more of him. And I would love to see him fight the guys in the upper echelon of the division. But until I see him fight the guys in the upper echelon of his division, I will not be crowning him the king of anything. You have to take it. If you're the strongest, then you take it. Alexander said it the best. Give it to the strongest. The belts are there. If whoever has the strap, let him fight the guy with the strap and let him take it. Those are my thoughts. Drop your thoughts down below. As always, I would love to hear what you have to say. Please like, please share, please subscribe to the channel.